Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex, and today we're talking about Daniel Jones. Get your drinks. It's Friday. Daniel Jones, most polarizing player on this team. We don't know what he's going to be, but we hope that he turns into something decent. We hope that he shows us progression. What is enough for the coaching staff to really consider him the future? What is enough for Joe Shane to extend him? That's the big question. But first, the coaching staff actually has to get into a place where he's worth extending, even putting him in a place where the scheme is better, putting him in a place where the dysfunction around him isn't hindering his ability to succeed. And Daniel Jones, looking at him as a pure raw player, he can run, he can pass, he can throw the ball deep. He has some really good deep passing numbers, but his turnovers have been problematic to say the least, right? Back in his rookie season, 24 touchdowns. He looked really good in terms of being a legitimate passer. He has the arm talent, but the last 2 years under Jason Garrett, things really fell apart. And, when you look at him, and what he's accomplished, it's not much. But he has really roped off a couple of big runs, notably against the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, 24 touchdown passes, 12 interceptions back in 2019. And then fast forward to 2021, he's 24 years old. The kid is still extremely young. He only threw 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. And I mainly blame Jason Garrett for that reality, right? Jason Garrett held back this offense at a level that we can't even truly comprehend until we see what Brian Dable and Mike Kafka are going to put together,
I'm
right?
confident in myself. I'm confident in the team we have, in the coaches, and the system. I think we're all learning it, and we're improving daily with it. So there's a lot of reasons to be confident. I think when you look at all those pieces and. So we've got to focus on what we're doing now. We can't focus on results in the season. I mean, that's a long way away. We're focused on preparing now, practicing well, improving every day, and making.
Jason Garrett shrunk the field purposefully. He took pre-snap motion out of the equation. He basically did anything he could to ruin any sort of progress and development for this offensive system. Daniel Jones's development totally stopped the second they hired Jason Garrett. I mean, for goodness sake, at this point, I'm starting to think he was a sabotager from the Dallas Cowboys, because what he did set the Giants back like years. And not only that, but they put the quarterback in a position where the Giants had to decline his fifth-year option, which Daniel Jones clearly was a little bit like upset by. He was like, it is what it is. I can't control this. This is the decision they made. He clearly would have liked a little bit more reassurance. But the Giants are like, we don't even know what you are. Jason Garrett totally screwed you. That's not to say that Daniel Jones isn't at fault too, though, right? Daniel Jones has plenty of weaknesses, plenty of deficiencies, the fumbling, the not getting through his progressions properly. He's put it all on the field for everybody to see. He's had a couple of really great performances, notably against the New Orleans Saints last season. But what is enough, right? He had one good game and then nothing, right? So against New Orleans, the guy had 28 completions of 40 attempts, a 70% completion rate, 402 passing yards and 2 touchdowns and an interception, tossed in 27 rushing yards, right? That is his best game to date, let alone maybe the rookie, his first start against Tampa Bay as a rookie, right? New Orleans showed us with decent pass protection, he can be something. The thing is, the offensive line has been the weakest part, aside from Jason Garrett's scheme, over the past couple of years. But now you got Evan Neal at right tackle. You got Mark Lewinsky at right guard. You got Andrew Thomas healthy, ready to go at left tackle. At least a legitimate competition at left guard with Max Garcia, Josh Azudu, and Shane Lemieux. And then you have John Feliciano, who's kind of transitioning to center. We don't know what he's going to be. Nick Gates making his recovery. We don't know when he'll return. I would probably edge on the side of caution when it comes to Nick Gates really making an impact moving forward and what he's going to do. If he reclaims his role as a starter, it would be an absolute heroic journey, heroic story that we'll talk about for a long time. But for now, let's temper our expectations. Daniel Jones, though, right? They got into him a little bit this week, spoke to him, Brian Dable, about the offense specifically. What is going to happen as they curate this new offense, right? So last season, Jason Garrett and his small pea brain devised a scheme that basically would kill any quarterback's chance of succeeding, right? As a former quarterback, you'd like to imagine that you would try to get your guy as much knowledge before the snap as possible. The best way to get your quarterback knowledge is pre-snap motion. The Giants ran it 7.5% of the time last year, an unacceptable number. At the very least, you should be using it 20% because it gives you a lot of indication about if it's man or zone coverage, right? And that's 20% of plays, right? So if you're running a running play, you're not going to use pre-snap motion all the time. But if it's a passing play, you want people to think you're running jet sweeps. You want people to think you're running end arounds. You want people to think you're running play action or screen passes. All of those different variables play into a more successful passing game. So the one thing that stood out to me from Brian Daboll, what he said yesterday during the third day of OTAs, there's one little phrase that really stood out to me. He says, turn it loose. He wants Daniel Jones to turn it loose. That is music to my freaking ears. I know it's music to yours. Let the guy play football. Stop robotically managing him like Jason Garrett had him on a freaking string and he was playing with the guy would shrink the field. He'd roll him out to the right side. He'd totally take away the entirety of the field. And the worst part about it, I'm starting to look into more advanced metrics to piece together a narrative here that makes sense. Jason Garrett shrunk the field so much, and you wouldn't believe it, right? But Daniel Jones' best portion of the field where he has the most success is directly in the middle of the field. So why on earth would you shrink the field rolling out to the right side, rolling out to the left? And rollouts are not a bad thing, doing it occasionally. But you take away the middle and the opposite part of the field that you never want your quarterback to throw across his body. That's like rule number one, never do that. But Daniel Jones had some of his best metrics when throwing it to the middle of the field. Last year, for example, let's look at his rookie stats first. So 2019, he graded with a 97 overall passing grade when targeting the deep center of the field. Intermediate center, 66 grade, and short center was the best. He really, really succeeds in the short center of the football field. If Evan Ingram didn't drop so many passes, it would look a little bit better. But, when you're looking at his depth, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns in the middle of the field, intermediate. And then when he's throwing deep, he had 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions and 280 yards when throwing deep to the middle of the football field. He had 2 interceptions throwing outside right and 2 interceptions throwing outside left. Middle of the football field is his bread and butter. So why on earth is Jason Garrett out there running him to the right side and forcing him to shrink the field and throw it to nowhere? Even though your receivers are not performing well, they're not doing it well, you might as well have Daniel Jones try and throw the ball and push the ball. Interceptions, whatever. Your team, you won 4 games, 5 games. It doesn't matter. Start getting this guy some legitimate action and reps and testing him. It's at least worth it at a certain point. Last year, he ranked 80.7 overall grade, deep 20+ yards down the field. He threw 2 interceptions with 4 total touchdowns. He had basically most of his touchdowns came from the short areas, so 0 to 9 yards away from the line of scrimmage, 5 touchdowns, and then 4 touchdowns, 20+ yards downfield. He had 603 total yards when targeting the middle of the field. Everywhere else, way under that. So the middle intermediate portion of the field, so 0 to 20 yards from the line of scrimmage, 501 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown there. But everywhere else, 182 yards on the left side intermediate, 154 yards on the outside right. So we know where he really succeeds. Daniel Jones is really good at throwing the ball to the middle of the field, deep, intermediate, and short. So what does that mean? We need 2 things, really. One, a tight end who can attack the seams. The seams should be Daniel Jones's bread and butter. He's a really good seam throwing quarterback. So I don't know, maybe Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll really activate that part of his game. Let him throw it to the middle of the field, shift those safeties, use Daniel Bellinger, Ricky Seals-Jones, get them into the middle portion of the field and attack that section because that's where Daniel Jones makes his money. That's where he is actually proving to be the best quarterback. That's his best attribute, throwing it to the middle of the football field. But let's go on to Brian Daboll's quote here. So he says, there's going to be things that happen in every game. The defense is going to make a good play. There might be a tipped ball. We're going to have to do a good job of taking care of the football, but I want him to turn it loose. That's the instinctive nature of good quarterbacks, right? Watch Josh Allen, watch Patrick Mahomes, watch Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. 50% of their game is going through the proper progressions, doing all the right things that a fundamental quarterback should do. But also the other 50% is trying to do things reactionary based, let it loose, turn the ball loose, throw the football, take risks. You can't score in the NFL unless you're taking some risks ultimately. You got to throw those balls into tight windows. Those high-end throws, Those are the ones that separate good from great quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is far from a great quarterback. I wouldn't even categorize him as good right now. But he has the qualities to be good. He just has always needed better coaching. The Giants have failed him miserably when trying to do that. So looking at what Mike Kafka had to say about him, Daniel Jones has never been really a guy that's been drawn negative attention because of his work ethic, right? Mike Kafka said he's a smart kid. He works hard. Those are all the things that I had heard about him, but being able to see it in person has been great. Right now, just developing that relationship with him is the most important thing. And out here in practice, seeing him operate, seeing him communicate with the players, and how he talks to each and every group has been really cool. So kind of like Daniel Jones is like the veteran of the Giants right now. He's been there more than a lot of these guys. There's been a lot of turnover the last couple of years. So he knows a lot of the coaches. He knows the owners. He knows everybody. He's kind of helping everybody get in sync. And I'd say that leadership mentality, that leadership factor about Daniel Jones needs to come out right now. We need to see him perform at a high level off the field as well as on the field. We know he's a good practice player. He makes good throws in practice, but can he do it in every single game continuously? So basically, Daniel Jones went in and spoke about the fifth-year option thing. He said that was certainly out of my control, out of my hands, and that's the business part of it. I understand that. My job is to prepare to play as well as I can, help the team win games, and that is certainly what I am focused on. Kafka went on to say he's absorbing it in terms of all of the knowledge and stuff they're trying to implement in the new scheme and everything. He's absorbing it and he's able to spit it back out, get guys fixed and cleaned up on the field. Those are the things I'm looking for just out of the gate, getting guys lined up correctly, getting the hurdle sharp, crisp. Those are the things that are important for pre-snap stuff. So right off the bat, you're seeing that Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka are focusing in on pre-snap and what can you learn from the opposing defense pre-snap. Of course, the pre-snap motion helps decipher whether it is a zone or man coverage situation. It helps realign the defense, right? So let's say, for example, you wanted a linebacker to shift, I don't know, 2-3 feet. So your slot guy, let's say Kadarius Toney's in the left slot, right? He's going to be running a slant in the middle of the field. You want to try and shift that linebacker just a little bit. So what can you do? Maybe you're in shotgun. Daniel Jones is in shotgun. You say, hey, Saquon, split out wide left. Linebacker's actually man coverage on Saquon. You can move him out of the way now. Now you have an open gap. Kadarius Toney, man coverage against a slot corner. The guy's going to take ankles. He's going to take that right to that spot where that linebacker now shifted. Or maybe a cornerback followed him out there. Now you have a better opportunity with Kadarius Toney running an out route and you audible the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of different things. Daniel Jones needs to have the confidence and he needs to have the flexibility and the authority to change a play if he sees fit. The Giants just have to trust the guy, right? Give him an opportunity to show what he's got. I kind of got the sense that like Jason Garrett wouldn't let him change the play, wouldn't let him shift out of certain things, wouldn't let him do anything. And he kind of suffered because of that. Now, the offensive line obviously was a big part of that. And I expect that they're going to play better. Evan Neal immediately is going to be a dominant run blocker, a better pass blocker than Nate Solder. Mark Lewinsky is way ahead of Will Hernandez. So that should be an improvement. John Feliciano is a question mark, but I think he'll be about average, which is all I'm hoping for. Andrew Thomas, of course, he could have a Pro Bowl year for all we know, all pro. Who knows? Left guard, that's the big question mark. What happens there? I would love to see Josh Azudu get that opportunity to play, but we'll watch that. We'll watch that closely as that position battle unfolds this offseason. But I think Daniel Jones, right? Like he needs to have the ability to change the plays, the ability to sling the football, take risks downfield, but smart risks, like protect the football, but take smart risks. You don't have to just throw the ball up in the air on a 50-50 pass to Kenny Galladay. You don't always have to do that. Understand your progressions, understand that as the play develops, your receivers are going to end up in different areas of the field. And if you know what the coverage is, you're able to shift those guys. You're able to understand, okay, I know that Sterling Shepard's running a crossing route, and I know that they're playing single high safety, and I know that safety is going to follow Kenny Galladay deep on the side of the field, so maybe I can hit Sterling Shepard across on the crosser. There's so many things. I'd love to see them run a lot more mesh. Mesh concepts, really, really great man coverage beaters. You have those defensive backs running into each other, basically trying to dodge each other. It's really difficult to man up in that system. So I would love to see the Giants run a lot of mesh, especially against man coverage heavy teams. We know that Daniel Jones is capable of hitting those hole shots against zone coverage over the top in cover 2. And I think that a lot of teams play a lot of cover 3 these days. So I think that, those underneath routes, those shallow crossers, especially if you have cornerbacks that are dropping into the secondary, give it to Wan'Dale Robinson, give it to Kadarius Toney. Let them just take those screen passes and run with it, especially if you're playing off-ball coverage by 5 or 10 yards. Just give them the ball and let them work in space. Brian Daboll said, in addition, all we want to do, and he said this about Mike Kafka specifically, Mike Kapson's coming from the Chiefs. He's done a tremendous job with Patrick Mahomes. But the one thing I love about their offense is that they spread the offense out and they get their playmakers into space. And he said specifically, I subscribe to that offensive style rather. So
actually, the system that they used at Kansas City was an explosive system. Spread the field, get your playmakers in space, and that's a type of offense that I subscribe.
We can expect a lot of that, right? That's why they went after Wandale. That's why they went after some of these shiftier, more electrifying playmaker guys. Now you have Wandale, you have Kadarius and Saquon Barkley. Get those guys into space and let them work on the open field. Those are the guys you want. Then you pair it with Daniel Bellinger, your new tight end out of San Diego State, and the guy's a dominant blocker. You get him out in front at the second level. You get Wandale, Kadarius, Saquon behind him, and let him just go to work on those linebackers. Get your left guard get your left guard or rather left tackle and Andrew Thomas. Get your Evan Neals out of there into the second level and let them just go to work. Open up space. Your dominant blocker, Sterling Shepard, get him out in front of Kadarius Toney, whatever it might be. Kenny Galladay. Those guys are all really great run blockers, really great blockers for screen passes or whatever it might be. This system is going to look exponentially different than we've seen in the past couple of years, my friends. And I am so here for it. I'm really excited to see how this offense extrapolates on the strengths of Daniel Jones. Is he going to succeed? I have no idea. We probably will end up moving on. But at the very least, we can see how this system is going to help a quarterback advance, right? At the very least, we have a good situation coming in for a rookie quarterback, a good offensive line, and that's all we can ask for, right? If Daniel Jones ends up being the guy, that's amazing, great. If he isn't, we have a great system. We're building through the scheme, and we plug in the guy that we want and run from there. I'm excited about it, guys. I'd love to hear your opinions below on the YouTube comments regarding Daniel Jones. If you think that he can succeed this year, what it's going to take. But as always, much love for tuning into Fireside Giants. Make sure to like and subscribe below, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.